Hey guys, Happy New Year to you. This will be the first video, I guess, of this year for me. But been busy with synthesizer restorations, but a lot of them are being picked up by the clients. So I hadn't really shot any videos because, well, they're going to get to demo them here in person and get to play with them and experience them here. So not wasting time making the videos. Plus, they're mostly stuff that you guys have already seen. And then there's a few rare things I have worked on, like a Roland RS-202, Korg 770, a KX60, and then this little Micromoog. So that's kind of been my lineup here in this year. And of course, right before the year, I did like 3 or 4 Polymoogs, just trying to knock those out, getting those done. So it's been busy. It's been a busy end of the year into this new year for me. But anyways, today I'm going to be presenting you this little Micromoog here, and this belongs to Roy. So Roy, this video is for you. And just went through this one, redid it. It had a lot of problems. Had a power supply failure. That was number one. It was primary. The power supply had failed on the negative 15 volt side, putting out 19 volts. And it took out some of the circuitry with it. It still worked. It would still play, but it was way out of tune. It damaged some of the circuitry from the higher voltage, so I had to replace some components, just as, you know, the repairs, as well as I replaced some things as preventive service because of that high voltage. So took care of all that, full calibration, 12-hour burn-in, and then I just went through it and did my usual, rebuilt the keyboard assembly. The bushings had already been replaced in this one, so I didn't have to replace the bushings. I did replace one bushing because it was actually deformed from factory, from when they were manufactured, and so one key I couldn't get the height right because of the bushing. So I replaced the one deformed bushing and washed the keycaps, cleaned everything up really good, cleaned the bus bars, the J wires, and just gave everything a really good adjustment. So it's now a great playing instrument. Something I did learn on this one, and sometimes you learn by doing, and this is one of those examples where I was experimenting, found out I can't do these the same way I do Minimoogs. So I did replace this interface panel, and this is off a donor instrument I had. I had a Newell stock interface panel, but it was warped up pretty bad, and I did not like how it looked. And so I had this good donor instrument that had a really bad circuit board. Somebody had really just, I mean, tore the thing all to pieces, modifying it, trying to fix things, using different parts. It was just a mess. So I took that unit and I took the interface panel off it, put it on your chassis, and I'll show you why. So this one had delamination really bad, and it's actually an early unit. It's serial number 1959, making the 959th unit built. And it was actually built December 3rd, 1975. We actually even have a date on this thing. So it's an early unit, and they made different panels as they went along. They changed and they revised chassis designs. Well, this one in particular had some delamination going on. This is the original panel here. And as mentioned, I was going to treat it just like I do Minimoogs, where I take it apart and I remove that top layer of the laminate, and then you know, clean all the glues off, because you can see all the glues that are left behind when I do this. But kind of find out these are not made the same way as a Minimoog interface panel. So I started removing the top layer. You can see the top layer here. This is where it's still on here. But you can see some of the bubbling effect. It shrinks really bad. So your corners get exposed as this thing shrinks down with temperature. And you can see just how much it shrinks. It shrinks up, and then your knobs rub, and everything rubs, and it's just not good. So I started removing this. Well, I found out as I removed it, and I started trying to clean the glues off, well, the graphics come off with it. So that was the problem with this one. So I just kind of quit at that point and went to this one and got it and replaced it. So sometimes you just learn from doing, you know, and this is one of those examples where you don't always know the outcome, so you attempt it, knowing I had a spare, of course, and you know, just attempted it and it didn't work out, so replaced it. So even I make mistakes, as you can see in some of my testing here. But anyways, just cleaned up really good. I'll walk you around here, Roy, so you can see the thing. But detailed the chassis really good. Cleaned the wood, the fake wood grain on the sides. Hang on, let me get my battery here. And also a note for you Canon people out there. Y'all need to work on your battery, because this thing sucks. This is a new camera. I've only had it a year and the battery just is absolutely garbage on this thing. I have to keep it plugged in already. AX11 camera. But yeah, the battery's no good. But anyways, I'll bring you around back here. You can see how clean everything is. Of course, you can see I'm using an angled jack there. But just cleaned everything up really good. There's your seal number. 1959. It's a little faded out because they actually did use markers when they would put seal numbers on these things. But you can see your tune knob sets right at 12, so it's setting right where it should. And did a full calibration on it, so it's got a good calibration. Bring around here, you can just see how great everything looks there. Clean all the knobs as well. I hand washed these knobs. Just clean everything up. So it's just as clean as I can get it. I mean, it's still old. It's still got its little marks and dents and little things like that, but try to get them as good as I can here. But anyways, let me bring you back around here and I will make you guys a demo of this thing so you can hear it in action, Roy. Alright, so I'm just going to go over this thing, show everything's working for you, Roy, and show you how great everything sounds. And for you guys that are not familiar with the Micromoog, it's probably one of the coolest single oscillator synthesizers that I really know of. I mean, I've worked on a lot of different things, and these just have a character that's just so much different, and they're actually discrete. They're not using Curtis 3340s or any of that kind of stuff. It's actually discretely designed oscillators, or oscillator. The filter is a little bit different than most Moogs in the fact that it is a transistor ladder filter, but you have a range mode, so you can go from normal, full, tone. So you can actually put the filter in self-oscillation, or you can fix it where it doesn't self-oscillate. It gets the harmonics off the oscillator. And it also works when you're in tone as a sine wave oscillator, and it's actually linked to the octave switch of the oscillator. So you can actually change the octaves of your filter, which is something very unique when you look at other synthesizers. This was a Jim Scott design, and he worked at Moog. He was the one actually that worked on the Mini Moog. He worked on many projects over the years. He was one of the engineers there. And I think this was really his baby. This is the one that he really worked on the most, as far as one that he actually, kind of developed. And it's just a great design little synth. The knobs are recessed, as you can see, so you don't have to worry about breaking knobs off like some of the other synthesizers of this era. Just a really smart design. And then even calibration is fixed where you can lean this thing up. And you can calibrate everything from the back, and the things that you don't want your typical people to be able to touch are internal. You can't adjust temperature of your exponential current converter and that kind of stuff with the heater circuit. So it's not available outside the chassis. So in order to calibrate those, you have to open it. But that's where you would want a tech to work on these things anyways. So it's just a very smart design. It's just a really cool synth. But it's got a really great sounding oscillator too. It's a single oscillator as mentioned, but you do have a divider. You have a divide by 2, divide by 4. So you can get an octave lower or 2 octaves lower, and it's actually in a mixing control, so it's not just on or off like some of the other synthesizers that are one oscillator, where it actually drowns out the oscillator, the main oscillator, because when you get into wave shapes, all you hear is the sub-oscillators, it's called in a lot of other synthesizers. So anyways, we'll just start here. I'll start with the oscillators to show you that we'll start with the keyboard first, show you that all keys are working. Spent a lot of time getting these contacts cleaned and aligned right, as you can hear. And one test I like to do with these keyboards, just to show you that the contacts are mating really good, is I'll hold in the top note and go down. You won't hear any squirrely notes with the upper note held. As you can hear, they're all equal, they're all smooth. You don't hear any weird swirling going on in the notes. Usually caused by contact mating issues. So that's all been addressed. But your oscillator, we'll start with the oscillator here. So we'll start with a sawtooth wave. So this uses a little bit different oscillator design too, in the fact that you can actually vary the waveform in real time. You don't have like a selector like you have on a Mini Moog. So we can actually go from a sawtooth, you'll hear a pulse wave, and you'll hear a square wave, and you'll hear it go back to a pulse. So here we go. And now we are back in a sawtooth. The ranges work great, so you got 32. And right now we're in wide range, which makes this thing kind of an experimental electronic instrument because you got this knob called frequency. It's kind of crazy. You can do some really fun stuff with that when we talk about some other features of the synth. It seems like it's impractical right now, but it does open up some things for sound effects and some ring modulations and that kind of stuff. So we'll go back down to 16 footage. Open that up. Now we got the doubling. So the doubling, like I said, it's a sub oscillator. It's a divide by 2, divide by 4. So we can divide by 2. Or divide by 4. So divide by 2 was just what you heard, divide by 4. And it's just a square wave is all it is. But the fact that you can mix it makes it really useful. And since it's a one oscillator synth anyways, it's a really handy little thing to really add a little bit more to the synth. And I will show you another feature right quick. We'll go and go to modulation real quick. It has wave shape. It'll actually pan through the wave shapes through the modulation, which sounds really cool. It's almost like a pulse width modulation effect. Just a really great sounding synth, and that's where the filter opens up, so you're not even hearing the filter yet. But that's the oscillator section. We also have modulation of frequency, so I can show you that real quick. Just going to show the modulation is working. Speed it up a little bit. So that's your oscillator pretty much there. We also have sample and hold, which I'll show you that right quick. A square wave. And then you have noise injection like a Micromoog. Bend, which basically just makes your wheel work like a pitch bend. Also, the pitch bend works, the ribbon works. As you can hear. So all that's functioning just like it should there. Now we'll move away from the oscillators and go to the next section. You have a noise source generator. We can turn the oscillators off. And this is a chip based noise source, but it's not got the reset like the later Moog noise. So there's that. So now we'll go to the filter. So the filter, in this case, is a normal. You really won't hear the filter do anything as far as on its own. It's got to have a harmonic content. If we turn the oscillator off, you can see there's nothing because it's not in self-oscillation yet. We'll go back to normal oscillators, and you can hear how it works off the oscillators. But I also love too the envelope. So you got just attack release. So it's a really simple envelope generator controller. But it can actually get pretty thumpy. But you've got a mix. You can actually make it where it's going to follow out the contour, or if you put it in this mode, it's going to hold till off a key, as you see. It won't follow the release till I let off a note. And you can go negative in the contour, inverted. Which is pretty cool. If we go to full tone, it's going to give you a little bit more. What's also interesting too, this doesn't sound like the typical Moog. It's got a little bit different flavor to it. But now when we go to tone mode, now you can hear that filter. You can hear that classic sound, but it brings us into the filter itself. So I've actually calibrated this filter as well so it tracks the keyboard. But this is where it gets interesting, because as mentioned earlier, it's tied to your octave. So here we get really up there in frequency. And you hear it start ringing off things because this is an early unit, the circuit board's an early revision. So there's a little bit of noise in these early units, just from crosstalk between tracings and that kind of stuff. Especially when you get into the higher frequencies. But same thing, we can modulate the filter. So we can go here and so just a really cool sound, and of course this is a dry mix, but when you add like effects to it, it really comes alive, it really does even more for you. But really cool sound. And then of course we can shut the oscillators in drone mode, so it's just going to be, we'll just go back to the oscillators for a minute. So you can hear the filter, the oscillator is actually just in a drone, it's an elf note reference, and the filter is still tracking. So this doesn't sound very impressive until you do something called filter mod by oscillator. This thing really gets really interesting. You'll notice some Kraftwerk in this as well, because Kraftwerk used the Micromoog quite a bit. So we'll go here to so in weak mode right now we'll go strong. And it still doesn't sound that cool, but we'll go. So you can kind of hear it gets really crazy. Then we've also got the envelope generator we can put on it, or the contour generator. And then we can also put the oscillator back in tracking. Go to medium strength. You got a whole different kind of sound. We can go to full mode, so you lose the self-oscillation. Now we just went back to strong in the filter mod by Oscillator. And now we're back in normal mode on the filter. And you get into some L-film synthesis kind of stuff. This is very similar to what I do on the Micromoog. Like when you use the modulation bus to feed into the filter, you keep Oscillator 3 as an audio frequency source. It's a very similar approach here. We'll go back to, actually we'll go here. This is where the wide range knob gets interesting. Because we'll go here, I'm just going to make a sound real quick. And this is where we get into some Kraftwerk kind of stuff. Actually, see here it gets really crazy, really quick. Go back to normal. So now we're coming back to a normal instrument here. So you got your filter contour. So you've heard your release. So make it just where it's just a pop. We got the attack. So there's your attack, of course your release. This little synth has some really great harmonics though. It's just a really good harmonic little synth. So open that filter back up, and now we got the loudness contour, which right now I got it set where it won't follow the release till off a key. We'll change that. So that's going to follow out the release. So now we're at 0 on the release, the attack. So you hear your attack. And go back here, and then we got the loudness sustain set back to where it's not going to follow the release until off a key. As you can see. Set that to 0. You can see I got the release set to 0. You can hear it immediately after I off a key. You've also got a release function here. This works like the decay switch on the Micromoog. So right now, I've got some release. If we switch this over, so if we change that back, we'll have we've got the release. We've also got this bypass switch, and what it does, it turns on the VCA. It actually puts a voltage on the VCA, makes it actually bypass the contour generator. You just get a constant sustain. So it's a handy little feature, especially when you're calibrating. So we got that, but now I'm going to set up a sound. We'll just get a good sound going here that I like to use, and I'll show you just kind of how this thing sounds in this instrument. I might put a little effect on it. I got my little mixer over here. You've also got glide. If we put a little reverb on this, or a little effect on it, I've actually got a chorus mixed with reverb on this mixer. You can also get some really nice, like, kind of but you can tell it's definitely got that Moog ladder. What I love about the synth though in particular is you're hearing it, how I can match the frequency with the filter off the contour with the contour mount, and I can get this really kind of cool sub-harmonic from just the filter and the oscillator. So anyway, it's just a really cool synth. I'll turn this effects back off. That's a chorus with reverb, just a little bit of chorus in there. So I will show you the modulation section, the rest of it real quick. So you've heard kind of the effects of it through the filter and the oscillator, but you got some other things too, such as you can go here to filter. You got the sample and hold, which you've heard, which auto triggers. So that's it, actually sample and hold to the filter. It's actually changing the CV voltage of the filter. We also have keyboard sample and hold, so it's not going to auto trigger, it's just going to trigger every time I hit a note. So as you can hear, it's just going to, you're not going to hear the effect till I hit a key. Then we got the triangular, square wave, noise in the filter. And then of course, we got oscillator and filter, so affect both at the same time. But that's pretty much the modulation section. You got just the oscillator, which you've already heard. So you're just modulating just the oscillator. But yeah, it's just got a really good tone. I like the oscillator in this thing. It's just got a really cool oscillator design. And it's kind of neat too that the oscillator is a discrete circuit. It's using a very similar circuit to the Micromoog as far as how the actual relaxation oscillator works, but the wave shape and everything is a lot different as far as how they're doing that, and then plus the doubling effect. But anyways, I just want to take a minute here, Roy, and to show you that your instrument's fully working, and just give you a good little overview of it. And for you guys that watch my videos, really do appreciate you guys watching, and hope you guys have a very blessed 2024 here. And talk to you guys soon.